It all began with a quiet moment deep in the ocean, a place most people never think about. Far below the crashing waves and sunlight where the sea turns dark and cold, something unusual was waiting to be found. It was the kind of discovery that could change everything, if only anyone knew it was there. The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. But how much do we really know about what lies beneath? Most of the ocean is still a mystery, a vast and silent world. The deep sea is like another planet, full of strange creatures and strange shapes. No one has explored it fully because it is so hard to reach. The pressure is crushing, the light is gone, and the cold is freezing. Still, scientists try to learn more, sending robots and submarines down into the dark to bring back pictures and information. One such scientist was a woman who loved the ocean more than anything else. She wasn't famous. She didn't seek the spotlight. She simply wanted to understand the deep sea's secrets. She spent years studying the ocean's floors, working with a team that used advanced technology to map underwater mountains, valleys, and plains. Her work took her to some of the most remote places on Earth. On a quiet day, while the sun was shining high above the water, she and her team were testing a new kind of sonar equipment. Sonar is a way to use sound to see underwater, like how bats use echoes to find their way in the dark. Their sonar sent out sound waves which bounced off objects on the ocean floor and returned to the machine. The data helped build pictures of what was below. The area they were studying was part of the Mariana Trench, the deepest place in the ocean. No human had ever been down to the very bottom. It was a place of mystery and danger where few dared to explore. The scientist was excited but also cautious. The equipment had been working fine, but suddenly the sonar picked up something strange. At first, it looked like a mistake, maybe a rock formation or a large school of fish. But as the data came in, it became clear that this was something else. The shapes were too perfect. They had sharp edges and smooth surfaces that didn't belong in a natural place. The sonar images showed what looked like the outlines of huge ships lined up in neat rows. The team stared at the screens in disbelief. There were thousands of these shapes, spread over a large area. It was as if a massive fleet of vessels was resting on the ocean floor. No one could explain how such a thing could be there. Ships that big, in such numbers, should not be at the bottom of the trench. It didn't make sense. Were they old sunken vessels? But ships don't usually sink in perfect order, or remain so well preserved under crushing pressure. Something about this didn't fit any known story. The scientists decided to send a small underwater drone down to take a closer look. The drone was equipped with cameras and lights designed to capture images in the darkest parts of the ocean. It moved slowly toward the first strange shape. What it saw amazed everyone. The shape was not a rock or a natural object. It was definitely a ship. But unlike any human ship, the surface was made of a shiny metal that reflected the dim light strangely. The design was sleek and smooth, with patterns that looked like symbols or writing. The ship was massive, bigger than any naval vessel on Earth. The footage was shocking. The team gathered to watch the live feed in silence. The ship seemed almost alive, as if it was waiting for something. It lay still on the ocean floor, covered in deep-sea creatures, but it looked untouched by time. The scientists could hardly believe their eyes. For days, the team kept studying the fleet. More and more ships appeared on the sonar, each one unique but clearly connected. The fleet stretched over hundreds of square miles, hidden beneath the waves for thousands, maybe millions of years. It was the largest underwater discovery in human history. The scientist realized the importance of what she had found. But she also knew this was a secret that could change the world. If the public found out, governments would get involved and the fleet might be taken away, studied behind closed doors, or worse, used for unknown purposes. She debated whether to share the discovery immediately or wait. While the world above remained unaware, the scientists' discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Experts in history, engineering, and even astronomy wanted to examine the data. Some believed the fleet was evidence of an ancient civilization lost to time. Others thought it might be something more, perhaps not even made by humans. The question haunted everyone. Who had built these ships and why were they here? Could they be relics from a forgotten past? Or were they something from beyond Earth? Meanwhile, the scientist felt the weight of responsibility. She worked late into the night, reviewing every detail, trying to understand the technology behind the ships. Her team discovered that the metal used in the hulls was unlike anything known on Earth. It was stronger than steel, yet light as plastic, and resistant to corrosion. The symbols etched on the ships hinted at a language, but it was completely alien. No one could decode it. As the weeks passed, rumors of the discovery leaked. Media outlets began asking questions and governments issued statements denying any knowledge. But satellite images and ocean data could not be hidden forever. The world was on the brink of learning the truth. The scientist found herself at the center of a global mystery. She was no longer just a researcher. She was a guardian of a secret that might rewrite history. The hidden fleet beneath the ocean was real. It was enormous, and it was waiting. One night, as she watched the ocean currents on her screen, a strange thought crossed her mind. What if these ships were not abandoned? What if they were simply sleeping, waiting for the right moment to awaken? The idea seemed like science fiction, but the evidence was there, silent and deep below the waves. The ocean had kept its secret for centuries. Now the world had no choice but to face it. The world above the ocean was starting to buzz with questions. Whispers were growing louder about the strange fleet hidden beneath the waves. But not everyone was surprised. There were hints, pieces of old stories, and secret reports tucked away for decades, and some governments had known more than they had shared. It was a truth that had been kept quiet for years, hidden behind locked doors and top-secret files. In the late 1980s, long before anyone had modern sonar or deep-sea drones, a few nations had stumbled upon strange signals from the deep ocean. At the time, these signals were dismissed or classified as mistakes. But slowly, bits and pieces of information had leaked, enough to suggest something incredible was down there, something not of human origin. Now, with the new discovery confirmed by the scientist and her team, those secret files were starting to see the light of day. Journalists began digging, and old intelligence agents quietly spoke off the record. The pieces began to form a picture no one had expected. Beneath Earth's oceans, spread over massive areas, lay more than 1 million vessels. Ships, yes, but not the kind built by humans. These vessels were described as a fleet unlike anything known. They were enormous and perfectly preserved, resting silently for thousands of years. They seemed to belong to an advanced civilization, one far beyond the reach of any nation on Earth. This revelation sent governments into a frenzy. Military commanders, scientists, politicians, they all wanted answers. What was this fleet? Who built it? And what was its purpose? A few countries had quietly sent their own teams to investigate. But it was a dangerous mission. The deep ocean is a hostile place, and working in such extreme conditions required special equipment and brave crews. Even the most advanced submarines risked being crushed by the weight of the water above. Still, the desire to unlock the fleet's secrets pushed exploration forward. Meanwhile, in quiet meetings far from the public eye, world leaders debated how to handle the discovery. Some feared the fleet was a weapon left behind by an ancient enemy. Others hoped it might hold the key to new technology, or even a way to travel beyond our solar system. But one thing was clear. Whoever controlled the fleet could change the balance of power on Earth. This knowledge brought a mixture of excitement and fear. For the first time, humanity faced proof that we were not alone in the universe. But it also meant stepping into the unknown, and that can be terrifying. Back in the ocean, the scientist and her team worked day and night. They carefully studied every detail of the ships. What was their design? What materials were they made from? Could they be powered up again? Slowly, the team made remarkable discoveries. The metals used to build the vessels were unlike anything found on Earth. They were incredibly strong, yet incredibly light. They resisted corrosion and damage even in the harshest underwater environment. More puzzling were the symbols carved into the ship's surfaces. They looked like writing, but in a strange, flowing pattern no one could recognize. Linguists and codebreakers tried to understand them, but it was like trying to read a language that had never been heard before. At the same time, engineers studied the ship's internal systems. Some control panels lit up when touched, reacting to human presence in a way that was both eerie and fascinating. Sensors seemed to scan the person standing near. But instead of reading a fingerprint or retina, they responded to something deeper, perhaps DNA or even thoughts. This technology was beyond anything humans had developed. It raised questions about who had made these ships and how advanced their knowledge had been. While scientists focused on the mysteries of the ships, others outside the lab grew restless. Media outlets began reporting on strange sonar anomalies. People around the world speculated about alien life, government cover-ups, and future space travel. Some conspiracy theories flourished. Some said the fleet was proof that aliens had visited Earth long ago. Others believed it was a secret military project gone wrong. Still, others claimed it was a hoax. The scientist ignored the noise and focused on the facts. For her, the ocean was a place of discovery, not speculation. She believed that the truth would come through patient study and careful research. But as news spread, pressure mounted. Governments wanted control. Military forces arrived in the region, setting up bases and monitoring the waters. The ocean floor was becoming a guarded zone. Despite this, the scientist and her team pushed forward, determined to uncover the fleet's secrets before it was too late. One day, during a routine dive, one of the drones picked up an unusual signal from inside a ship. It was a pulse of energy, rhythmic and steady. No one had expected the vessels to show any sign of life after all these years. The team prepared for a deeper investigation. The drone carefully entered the ship's interior through an opening. Inside, the walls were covered with glowing lines that pulsed softly in time with the signal. As the drone moved through the corridors, it sent back images of control rooms filled with strange machines, screens showing unfamiliar symbols, and even what looked like seats for pilots. The most astonishing moment came when one of the control panels suddenly activated. Lights flickered on and a holographic map of the stars appeared in the air. It showed not only the solar system but distant galaxies as well. The scientist watched the images on her screen, her heart racing. This was no longer just an old ship on the ocean floor. It was a message, one meant to be found. Her mind raced with questions. Who had built this fleet? Why had they left it here? And what had they been waiting for? As the weeks passed, other ships began to respond in the same way. More energy pulses were detected, and more holographic maps appeared. It was as if the fleet was waking up. At the same time, satellites and space telescopes noticed strange energy patterns coming from Earth's oceans. These signals were not natural. They seemed to be reaching out into space. Then, something even more incredible happened. A wormhole, a kind of shortcut through space, opened near the planet Jupiter. From this portal, starships emerged, ships unlike anything humans had ever seen, sleek and glowing with energy. They did not attack or threaten Earth. Instead, they sent a message, a peaceful greeting translated into hundreds of Earth languages. It said simply, "Your time has come. The fleet is yours, but you are not alone." This message sent shockwaves around the globe. People were amazed and afraid. The scientist realized that humanity was standing at a crossroads. The hidden fleet beneath the ocean was no longer just a mystery. It was a gift or a challenge from beings far beyond Earth. The future had suddenly become uncertain. But one thing was clear. The oceans had kept their secret for centuries, and now the galaxy was watching. The world had changed, and most people didn't even know how to react. The message was simple, but it shook everything humanity believed to be true. Your time has come. The fleet is yours, but you are not alone. News channels ran the story nonstop. People stood frozen in front of TVs, mobile screens, and radios. Some were excited, some were terrified. Others didn't believe it. But deep down, everyone knew things would never be the same again. In the background of this storm, scientists and researchers from all over the world worked together like never before. For once, borders didn't matter, and politics took a back seat, at least for a moment. Everyone wanted answers. What was this fleet really? Where did it come from? And what did the message truly mean? Inside one of the ocean research centers, the main scientist sat silently, staring at the footage from the drone that had entered the first ship. She replayed the part where the star map appeared. The holographic stars moved slowly, and the view zoomed in on a tiny glowing dot. Earth. The ship had been watching Earth the entire time. But why? Her team had made new progress. They had started studying the alien metal more closely. Even under powerful microscopes, the structure of the metal didn't make sense. It didn't behave like anything found on Earth. It could heal itself from small scratches. It responded to heat, cold, and even thought in strange ways. Some parts of the ship seemed to sense when humans were near and reacted to them. One of the scientists, while wearing gloves, had accidentally touched a panel inside the ship. The metal glowed and shifted slightly under his fingers. Seconds later, lights turned on across the room. No buttons were pressed. It was like the ship recognized him, or something inside him. That event started a new round of testing. They brought in people of different ages, backgrounds, and even health conditions. Surprisingly, some of them triggered reactions in the ships while others didn't. It wasn't about strength, intelligence, or even language. The ships seemed to be responding to something else, something deeper, something inside the human body itself. Some guessed it might be DNA. Others thought it had to do with energy patterns or brainwaves. No one really knew yet, but the ships were clearly not reacting randomly. It was like they were programmed to wait for the right people. This discovery led to another big question. Were these ships left here for us? On purpose? That idea changed everything. If the ships were left behind, not buried or destroyed, but carefully hidden, then maybe this was a plan. A long-term plan by beings far more advanced than humans. Maybe Earth was part of a much bigger story, and humanity was only now beginning to wake up to it. The more ships they explored, the more they found rooms full of strange controls, chairs with smooth curves shaped perfectly for a human-like body, and corridors that led to massive chambers filled with what looked like stored energy, enough to power entire cities for years. But nothing inside the ships worked fully yet. It was like walking through an ancient computer that was in sleep mode, waiting for the right command to wake up. Or maybe, waiting for the right person. Around the world, people reacted in different ways. Some celebrated. They believed the ships were gifts, proof that humanity was special, chosen even. Others feared what would happen next. Was this a test? A trap or a warning? Religious leaders gave their own meanings to the event. Some called it a sign from a higher power. Others said it fulfilled prophecies written long ago. At the same time, scientists were busy trying to unlock the ships piece by piece without damaging anything. But it was slow work. The technology was far beyond what humans had ever seen. Then came another unexpected twist. A second wave of signals came from the fleet. This time it wasn't just a message, it was movement. A group of ships began to shift slightly, rising just a few meters off the ocean floor, not floating to the surface yet, but clearly showing signs of activity. Everyone was shocked. The fleet wasn't dead. It was alive, just sleeping. And now it was waking up. Panic spread across military centers. If the ships started moving, who would control them? Could they be dangerous? Should they be stopped? But before any decisions could be made, something even stranger happened. One of the ships, a smaller vessel compared to the others, began to open from the top. Slowly, silently, like a blooming flower, a hatch opened, and a soft blue light poured out. The light rose upward, untouched by water, and disappeared into the ocean above. That same night, a young boy in a quiet village thousands of miles away had a dream. In the dream, he saw stars, machines, and symbols he had never seen before. When he woke up, he felt a strange pull, like he had to go somewhere. He wasn't alone. Across the world, people began to experience the same thing. Ordinary people, some farmers, some students, some workers, began to feel drawn toward certain places. Some dreamed of the ocean. Others started hearing soft humming sounds in their heads like music from far away. Scientists started to take notice. These people had one thing in common. They all triggered reactions in the ships when shown images or recordings from the fleet. One researcher made a bold suggestion. What if the ships were calling out? Not to governments, not to armies, but to individuals, to people who carried a certain key within them. It was a shocking idea, but the evidence was growing. Now governments had a choice: try to take full control and risk destroying what they didn't understand, or step back and let the mystery unfold. In a rare moment of agreement, a few powerful nations decided to allow a neutral team of scientists and volunteers, chosen from across the globe, to continue peaceful contact with the ships. These teams included both scientists and the strange group of individuals who had felt the calling. They were treated with care, observed closely, but allowed to interact with the ships freely. The results were incredible. When these individuals entered the ships, things began to happen. Lights turned on. Hallways lit up. One woman sat in what looked like a pilot seat, and the ship responded immediately, showing her more star maps and even playing sounds that no one could translate yet. But they were beautiful, calming, like a message of welcome. The ship seemed to accept them. More people were tested. Some had the same effect. Some didn't. It was becoming clear. These ships had been designed to choose their own pilots, and they weren't choosing based on power, wealth, or fame. They were choosing based on something else, something only the ships understood. The scientist who had discovered the fleet stood back and watched it all unfold. She felt proud but also deeply humbled. What had started as a simple sonar reading had become the biggest moment in human history. Still, there were many questions. Who built the ships? Why did they leave them here? And what was the true meaning of the message? You are not alone. Were those who left the ships still watching? Would they return? Or were they already here in some form humans couldn't yet see? No one had all the answers. But one thing was clear. The fleet was no longer silent. It was waking up. And it was choosing. The world stood on the edge of something bigger than anyone had imagined. The ocean had held this secret for so long. But now the galaxy was listening, and the next step would change everything. After the fleet began to respond and choose its pilots, the world changed in ways no one could have predicted. The ocean no longer felt like a place of mystery far away. It was suddenly at the center of the biggest story in human history. People everywhere looked at the sea differently. No longer just a place for fishing or travel, but a gateway to something far greater. The team of chosen individuals grew slowly but steadily. They came from all walks of life, young and old, from big cities and small villages, from countries across the globe. Some didn't even understand why they had been chosen or what was happening to them. They simply felt a call deep inside, a feeling that something was waiting for them beneath the waves. The ships welcomed these people. As more pilots spent time inside the vessels, they began to understand parts of the mysterious technology. Some learned how to move the ships. Others discovered how to activate the glowing panels that filled the walls. The more the ships responded, the more it became clear. This was not just a fleet of old vessels. It was a kind of library, a school, and a machine all at once. Inside the ships, the pilots found rooms filled with images of distant worlds, stars, and strange creatures. Some rooms showed plants and animals never seen on Earth. It was like a museum, but also a message, a record of life beyond our planet. Scientists worked with the pilots to study these images. They began to see patterns, hints of a story told across space and time. The fleet was a message from a civilization that had traveled far beyond Earth, maybe even to other galaxies. As the pilots learned to control the ships, they noticed something else. The vessels were powered by a source of energy unlike anything known on Earth. It wasn't fuel or batteries. It seemed to come from the ships themselves, an endless supply of power, quiet and clean. This discovery sparked hope. If humanity could learn to harness this energy, it might solve many of Earth's biggest problems like pollution, energy shortages, and climate change. But the fleet held more secrets. One day, during an exploration deep inside one of the largest ships, a pilot found a hidden chamber. The room was filled with strange crystals that glowed softly. When touched, these crystals seemed to send images directly into the pilot's mind. Visions of distant stars, ancient cities, and beings made of light. The visions were overwhelming, but beautiful. They showed a history of the fleet's creators, a peaceful civilization that had once traveled the universe, sharing knowledge and friendship. They had built the fleet as a way to protect their wisdom and technology in case of danger. But something had happened. The visions showed battles, destruction, and the slow fading of this civilization. It seemed that the fleet was left behind as a last hope, waiting for a new generation to discover and continue their legacy. This story gave the pilots and scientists a new sense of purpose. They were not just exploring ships. They were guardians of a legacy, chosen to protect and share the knowledge of a civilization long gone. Yet, with this purpose came responsibility and risk. Not everyone trusted the fleet or the new pilots. Some people feared the power hidden in these ships. Governments grew cautious, and some military leaders pushed for control over the fleet. There were rumors of secret plans to take over the vessels and use their technology for weapons. Protests and debates broke out around the world. People argued about who should control the fleet. Some said it should belong to all humanity. Others believed it should be controlled by a few powerful nations. Amid this chaos, the scientist who had discovered the fleet stayed focused. She reminded everyone that the fleet was a gift and a trust. It had survived for thousands of years because it was protected. Now it was humanity's turn to protect it and use it wisely. The chosen pilots, many of whom had never worked with advanced technology before, became ambassadors. They traveled to meet leaders and communities, sharing their experiences and the lessons from the fleet. Slowly, they built trust and understanding. Together, they developed plans to study the ships carefully and safely. They wanted to unlock the fleet's secrets without damaging anything. The ships themselves seemed to help. As if sensing the care and respect, the fleet's technology responded by opening new areas and revealing more information. One of the most exciting discoveries came when a group of pilots managed to activate a small starship within the fleet. Unlike the massive vessels resting on the ocean floor, this starship was designed to leave Earth and travel into space. The starship was small, sleek, and silent. It ran on the mysterious energy source found throughout the fleet. When powered on, it showed detailed star maps, paths through space, and messages from distant places. The pilots prepared for the first journey beyond Earth's atmosphere. It was a moment filled with hope and fear. For centuries, humans had looked to the stars with wonder. Now they had a chance to explore them. The launch was carefully planned. The world watched as the starship rose slowly from the ocean, moving smoothly through the sky until it disappeared into the vastness of space. The mission was not just about exploration. It was a message to the universe that Earth was ready to join a larger community of civilizations. Back on Earth, life was changing. The discovery of the fleet and the starship brought new ideas, new technology, and a new sense of unity. People started thinking differently about their place in the universe. Children studied the stars with renewed excitement. Scientists collaborated across borders. Leaders worked together to protect the oceans and the fleet. But there were still many mysteries left to solve. The fleet's creators had left behind puzzles, challenges, and warnings. Some ships held rooms filled with strange machines that no one yet understood. Others contained archives of knowledge encrypted in codes far more complex than anything humans had created. Every day brought new discoveries, new questions, and new adventures, and the galaxy was watching. The opening of the starship's journey marked the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. It was a chance to learn, to grow, and to join the wider universe. The hidden million-vessel fleet beneath the Earth's oceans was no longer just a secret. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of curiosity, and a promise of the incredible future that lay ahead. After the starship launched into space, the world held its breath. People everywhere stared at the sky, waiting for news. This small ship carried the hopes and dreams of all humanity. Not just a machine, but a symbol of what was possible. The pilot inside the ship was calm, but focused. This journey was the first step beyond Earth for the fleet's technology and for humans. The starship moved smoothly through space, guided by its own systems and the pilot's growing understanding of the ship's controls. As the ship traveled farther from Earth, the pilot saw wonders never imagined before. Vast fields of stars, colorful nebulae glowing in space, and distant planets that sparkled like jewels. The ship's systems showed signs of life on some of these planets. It was a reminder that Earth was part of a larger living universe. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the fleet beneath the oceans continued to reveal its secrets. Scientists found new rooms and hidden compartments inside the vessels. These spaces were filled with advanced technology, devices that could store vast amounts of information or create energy from thin air. One of the most surprising discoveries was a chamber filled with plants and seeds. These plants were unlike any on Earth. Some glowed softly in the dark, others seemed to respond to touch or sound. The seeds held the possibility of growing new kinds of life, plants that could survive in harsh environments or even in space. The idea of these plants sparked excitement. Could they help solve food shortages? Could they bring life to barren places on Earth or other planets? At the same time, researchers noticed something curious. The technology inside the ship seemed to be connected, not just within each vessel, but across the entire fleet. When one ship's systems were activated, others responded. It was like a network, a living web beneath the ocean, waiting to be fully awakened. This network might allow the ships to communicate with each other, sharing information instantly over great distances. The implications were huge. If humanity could learn to use this network, it could change communication on Earth and beyond. The growing understanding of the fleet brought new challenges too. Not everyone agreed on how to proceed. Some groups wanted to keep the fleet's technology secret, fearing misuse or panic. Others believed in sharing everything openly, so all people could benefit. Discussions about ethics, security, and control filled the news. Leaders met in special summits to decide how to protect the fleet while allowing research and exploration. Amid these debates, the pilots who had been chosen by the fleet formed a special community. They shared their experiences, their fears, and their hopes. Many had come to feel a deep connection to the ships and to each other. They understood that their mission was bigger than themselves. Some pilots trained to become explorers, learning how to operate the ships and navigate the stars. Others worked with scientists to decode the fleet's vast archives of knowledge. Together they made slow but steady progress. One day the pilot who had launched into space sent back a message. The starship had reached a nearby star system, one that the fleet's maps had highlighted as important. The system had planets with signs of life and ancient structures similar to those found on the ships. The discovery raised new questions. Had the fleet's creators lived there? Had they built these structures as waypoints or homes? The pilot explored one of the planets carefully, sending back images of towering buildings made from materials that shone in the sunlight. Inside the ruins, strange devices hummed quietly, still powered after centuries. Scientists on Earth studied the data eagerly. These ruins were clues, pieces of a puzzle that could explain the history of the fleet's creators and their mission. As the mission continued, the pilot found a starship similar to Earth's but much larger and more advanced. It was docked in a hidden space station orbiting one of the planets. The starship seemed ready to launch. It was a message, a sign that the fleet's creators had prepared for their return, or perhaps for humanity to continue their work. Back on Earth, the excitement grew. The discovery inspired new generations of people. Students dreamed of becoming explorers, scientists worked harder than ever, and communities came together to celebrate this new chapter in human history. The fleet beneath the ocean was no longer just a secret or a mystery. It was a bridge to the stars and to the future. But with great discovery came great responsibility. The fleet's technology was powerful, and the knowledge it held could change everything from energy and medicine to travel and communication. It was up to humanity to decide how to use it wisely. As the pilot prepared to explore the starship in the hidden space station, the world watched and waited. This journey was not just about exploring new worlds. It was about finding a place in the universe and understanding what it meant to be part of something much larger. The fleet had brought humanity to the edge of a new era, and the next steps would define the future, not just of Earth, but of all who looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. The journey had reached its most important point. After many months of exploring the hidden starship in the distant space station, the pilot and the team back on Earth were beginning to understand the full meaning of the fleet and its creators. The story that had started with a mysterious sonar reading in the ocean had become a story about hope, connection, and the future of humanity. Inside the giant starship orbiting the distant planet, the pilot found something unexpected, an archive, a kind of library, but not like any Earth library. It was a place filled with memories, stories, and knowledge saved as light and sound. As the pilot walked through the halls, these memories played around like holograms, showing moments from the past, peaceful cities, strange creatures, celebrations, and even times of great danger. The memories told a story of a civilization that valued peace and knowledge above all else. They traveled the stars not to conquer, but to learn and share. Their technology was advanced, but always used to help others. This realization filled the pilot with both awe and responsibility. The fleet was not just technology or ships. It was a message about how a civilization could live in harmony, with itself, with others, and with the universe. Back on Earth, the team of scientists and pilots watched the messages and tried to learn from them. The archives contained ideas about energy, medicine, culture, and even the mind. It was as if this lost civilization was reaching out across time and space, hoping humanity would carry their mission forward. One of the most important lessons was about balance. The fleet's creators had built their society on respect for life and the natural world. They believed technology should support life, not harm it. This lesson was more urgent than ever for Earth, where pollution and conflict threatened the planet. The pilot in the starship sent back a message filled with hope. We are not alone. We are part of a larger story, one that continues through us. This message united people in a way no other event had before. Across the globe, communities gathered not just to celebrate discovery, but to think deeply about their place in the world and the stars. The pilot prepared for the next step, a journey beyond the known star system, to explore further into the galaxy. It was a mission filled with uncertainty, but driven by curiosity and the desire to connect. Before leaving, the pilot accessed one last part of the archive, a set of instructions and warnings. The creators of the fleet had left these messages to guide future explorers. They spoke of dangers in space, of the need for peace, and of the importance of protecting life wherever it was found. The instructions also mentioned a hope that whoever found the fleet would choose to continue the legacy of kindness, knowledge, and unity. The pilot took these words to heart. As the starship moved deeper into the stars, the crew on Earth prepared for the unknown. They worked to develop new technology inspired by the fleet, to protect the planet, and to build a future where humans could live in harmony with the universe. The experience of the fleet had changed the world forever. Borders and conflicts began to lose meaning in the face of a shared mission. People started to see themselves as part of a larger family, connected by the stars and the oceans. Yet, the journey was just beginning. The fleet beneath the oceans remained a source of mystery and wonder. New ships were still being discovered, each holding new surprises and knowledge. The ocean itself seemed alive with possibility. Scientists worked with pilots to unlock the secrets of the fleet safely and respectfully, always remembering the lessons of the lost civilization. People everywhere were inspired to look beyond their everyday lives. The stars were no longer distant and cold. They were places to explore, to understand, and to protect. The fleet had shown humanity what was possible, a future where technology and nature, knowledge and kindness, power and peace could exist together. And in the hearts of people everywhere, a new hope was born, a hope that the galaxy was full of friends, waiting to be discovered, a hope that the future was brighter than the past, a hope that humanity's story was just beginning. The hidden million-vessel fleet beneath Earth's oceans was no longer hidden. It was a light in the dark, a call to adventure, and a promise of a better tomorrow. As the pilot and the team continued their journey, one thing was clear: this was not the end, but a new beginning. A beginning for Earth, a beginning for humanity, a beginning for the stars.